Thank you for listening to the Conform to Christ podcast, where we seek to engage the mind, affect the heart, and call people to follow Christ. My name is George Mays. Here with me is Jay Jones. And
Morning, George.
This is a rainy Monday morning for us.
Oh yeah, super rainy. From now on, when you refer to me, my radio name will be
Harry Hones?
No.
Oh, okay.
Jay,
okay.
Jay Jones, the Tribeless.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, the Tribeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm referencing that very strange interaction I had on Friday with the super racism, super racist guy.
Well, in case people weren't listening to the Free for All Friday, which was just the beginning.
Oh man!
For some reason, the Christ Center Churches Conference Facebook page has been getting blown up by these sacred name people who are asking us if we worship Yeshua.
Yeah.
or white Jesus.
Yeah.
And
some are anti-Trinitarian too. Like, well, that guy is.
Yeah. So Jay interacted with one guy on Thursday, and so we were able to do our podcast talking about it a little bit. I'd encourage people to go back and listen to that. But I took two of my boys to see Black Adam on Friday, and while we were waiting for the movie to start, I just was flipping through Facebook and looking to see, just trying to catch up on things. And Jay had this massive interaction with this guy. I was like, what is happening here? Because, and it was funny because you would just write just a little thing. And this guy would post video, after video, and long.
Oh yeah, big time.
Just weird stuff.
Yeah, he did. He was. I don't know if he was a Black Hebrew Israelite, but he's definitely influenced by that. And so he was, I think, black supremacist. So we were talking last night. I was talking with Angie. She's been talking with the kids. We had an opportunity arise to talk to them about, white racism. There are people today still, like in Southwest Oklahoma, that are legit racist toward black people. And so we're talking about it, and I was like, get a load of this. This guy, man, the strong racism, like vile hatred of white people.
Right.
Yeah. And so he was like, it was like Western European Catholics he had a real strong hatred of, white people in general. And I was like, wait till he gets a load of where my people are from. So it's like, so I told him about, my ancestry, which is a super mixed bag. Like, who am I going to hate? Right. You got a Nordic who, raped and pillaged everybody on the planet, including the Western Catholics. Then because of that, I have Western European, obviously. And then after that, I have a small amount of African from the western point of Africa, which is where the slave trade came from. So we know how that happened. So I told him, I was like, so somewhere, like my ancestors sold my other ancestors to these terrible people who were raped and pillaged by these worse people. And then they came to Oklahoma and apparently intermarried with Native American people. Who am I supposed to hate?
Right.
Like, everybody? Should I hate the whole world? Should I hate myself? And he said...
I can't believe that you spent so much time interacting with this guy.
Well, I had time to kill.
That's what...
I had some time to kill.
That's what really blew me away.
I was waiting for the printer guy to show up. I was done. I finished my sermon. I was like, I got like an hour to kill here.
Yeah.
Why not? So I jumped in.
Some people read books, and Jay interacts with wackos on.
What's amazing is that he kept interacting, because I started the conversation.
He did.
The way I started it, I just said, "Hello, Antichrist," Yeah. And I listed the verses to why he's Antichrist,
Mm-hmm.
because he denies the Trinity, denies the Son.
Yeah.
But he kept going. At one point, I asked him if he was demon possessed. He didn't answer that question, but he kept on with his vile hatred.
Yeah.
And I put the text because he claims to believe, like, I guess that Jesus, or he probably wouldn't call him that because Jay didn't invent, or it was invented by evil white people.
Right.
But he would believe that Yeshua died for people's sins to be saved somehow. Really weird. So I put the verses from Revelation that he died for people from every tribe, tongue, language, and nation. And he said, white people don't have a tribe. So that's why I'm now referred to as
You learn something new every day, I guess.
yeah, because they're just like an offshoot, a curse of other people. They're tribalists. So my radio name shall now be J. Jones the Tribalist.
Okay, very nice. Did you read the other one? The lady that contacted us last night,
dude.
So I don't
that lady.
I haven't. I've never tried this before. I don't know if this connects to my phone, Larry. I don't know if it. No. Okay. Well, let me. I wasn't planning on reading this, but it's really funny. And since we're talking about it, I guess we can. Let me just read this. And then we can go on to the passage before us. And I don't know why these people are compelled to message our conference on the Trinity with just random things that have nothing to do with anything on the conference page. This is from Danielle. I'm gonna try to read it like she read. Revelation 22. The earth has a cycle much like a woman. Smiley face. If you draw this out with the cycle going up, going down, etc., then the throne in the clouds, ... It will look like a lollipop tree that a small child would draw, or a uterus, ...
What? Oh my God.
The blood of life is the Spirit of God that comes down to us, ... Much like rain, which also gives life. Smiley face. He gives us things we can see so we can understand things we can't see. There is a blood of pain, the human blood that spills on the ground, ... Blood emoji. I don't know. Then, ! There is the blood of life that comes from the Father in heaven. This is the spiritual blood. / spirit that raises the dead. Water emoji. To believe means to assume. We have to believe ... in order to know. We are all loved and saved no matter. By following commandments, we can bring God's peace and joy to us, but the 10 commandments, and the greatest is to love, should be used together with balance, like using the head and the heart ... We set the environment in order to bring peace in our lives. Sometimes when little kids are doing things that will hurt themselves, we have to be firm or scary with them in order to get them to listen. It's the same thing with God. He doesn't want to be scary, and he wants us to follow rules, not in order to save us from being damned so much, but to bring peace in our lives, to get rid of fear. There is no fear in love, and absolutely true agape love is not found in fear. It is found in peace and in the still, in the quiet, in the boring. That is why we follow the commandments. To believe is to assume. It's really not that serious. To tell someone they have to believe or they will go to hell is a threat, and that's not love. Also, in Genesis 3:15, a thought is a seed. Rainbow emoji, water emoji, cloud emoji, peace sign emoji, heart emoji, tree emoji, and I'm not sure what this smiley face emoji is. God can be scary, and some people definitely need to understand how scary and big God is, but he will deal with them. The Holy Ghost. She misspelled ghost. Holy Ghost does not play around, and God is not bound, not even to books or rules. He can do whatever the heck he wants if he needs to do it, even break his own rules. Smiley emoji. Most people, though, are good, and they just need to know that they are so much very loved. Rainbow emoji, bridge emoji, rainbow emoji. There is a cross / bridge. Rainbow emoji, bridge emoji, bridge emoji. Not a wooden cross of death, no. a cross between heaven and earth that God the Father through Jesus has made a way for us so we can know God. It's very exciting to truly know, not just believe, that there really is a big God out there.
Yeah. There's
Did you understand any of that? Because I didn't. And I was sitting here looking at it.
It's like you wonder, like, where did like, how do you get there? Like, how do you end up there? Like where this is your thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? Where you, like Oprah, maybe a heavy dose of Oprah,
Maybe
with a little Stephen Furtick, maybe a little Joyce Meyer.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Bizarre stuff.
maybe some. Yeah, I could see some crystal action going on too with this. You know what I'm saying? That people have that's like a
Crystal meth.
like the little yeah, that may be, that very well may be. People use those crystals today.
Right,
It's like a thing coming back today. Magic crystals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a.
There's probably some rock involved in this.
So if you
legal or illegal,
if you'd like to start one, hello Antichrist, I can enjoy your interaction today, George.
Yeah.
Huh? What do you think?
I don't even know how I would start with that. I don't. I don't even. Hello, weirdo. When was the last time you've been to a doctor?
For real, man.
Yeah. It's weird to see the people who are interacting with the
one guy
with the
never
page.
wrote back.
Oh yeah, did he stop?
The guy from the Institute of Metaphysical.
Oh yeah.
I am whatever IDMR, Institute of Dynamic Metaphysical Research or whatever.
He's too good for us.
Well, I remember what I wrote him. I said you didn't even ask the question in good faith.
Right.
Like you've been in this a long time. You lied.
Yeah.
And then I told him that stuff. Yeah, he didn't respond. So
Fun times.
yeah,
We need a social media person who can just deal with all this stuff so we don't have to. I get notifications sometimes like, oh, someone's, asking a question about the conference. And then it's some weirdo that's talking about how the
lollipops.
Revelation 22 is a picture of a uterus. I don't know what's going on anymore, Jay.
I know. Oh, goodness.
All right. Well, I don't even know how to transition into Ecclesiastes, but that's where we're going.
Okay. It is
text-driven Tuesday. This is not a free-for-all Friday.
In case you wondered.
If you're still listening. So we're back in Ecclesiastes, and we've got a bigger section, chapter 5, verse 8 through chapter 6, verse 9. And this is all about money.
Yeah.
Jay, those preachers always preaching about money.
I was preaching about money. I was trying to think. I think this might be the first sermon I've preached specifically about money. What do you think, Larry? Larry, you've been around for the whole time I've been here. Larry can't even remember. You don't remember? Larry's like, nah, you don't remember. I think it is though.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, when I first came to Northwest, I preached through Malachi.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the passage about giving.
Yeah.
Robbing God. Right. Then we went to 1 Corinthians, and there's a section in there, chapter 9, and it's about paying the pastor, basically,
right. Mm-hmm.
which is, it's in there. So, you don't have the luxury of just skipping it, but it's still a little awkward to be the guy who's getting paid by the church preaching a sermon about how you're supposed to pay the preacher.
Right.
And then we did a winter Bible study on 2 Corinthians. We did like a 3 or 4 night thing where we just went through 2 Corinthians, and there's chapters 8 and 9, which is about giving. Mm-hmm. So I've preached a lot about money just in like the first year and a half of being here in Lawton. Mm-hmm. I preached a lot on giving, but yours wasn't on giving.
It wasn't on giving.
Yours was on the opposite.
The opposite.
Being obsessed and worshiping money.
Yep. Dangers of money worship and greed. Well, money worship.
Yeah. An interesting transition because last week was about the proper reverence we should give to God in worshiping Him. And now there's a transition to worshiping money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's like we get a pause in Ecclesiastes is examining life east of Eden. So that's the title that I gave it, East of Eden, Emptiness East of Eden. Solomon has been making all of these observations, and really the question he asked at the beginning kind of flows through the book, which is, what can a man gain for all his toil under the sun? So what is gain in a fallen world? What can a man do that will complete him, to bring him some type of satisfaction or real contentment? Is there anything? And so he, looks out under the sun and he makes all these observations. And of course, the answer is always no. It's all an empty striving after the wind. It's all vanity. But he repeatedly makes these observations about the fallen world. And then we get that pause that we had last week, where it's like the temple,
right?
And then so it's like a brief little respite that we get, and we get to focus on God and worship. And then it's like all of a sudden he like leaves the temple and he goes back into the world, and we're back into all of the darkness again. And he's observing all of and that's how it'll continue. He'll continue to make these observations, and then he gets into a section where he kind of makes proverbial statements. But I'm not going to preach those one at a time. I think they serve a bigger theme that really is, I think, about God's sovereignty. But yeah, we had a pause, and it was
a Selah.
Yeah, it was a little pause, and then we're back right into it. And he now is looking at, in particular, money. He already told you before, money can't do it.
Right.
Now he kind of elaborates on what happens if you try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is an important topic because, as you showed in your intro, we're obsessed with money.
Mm-hmm.
What's the percentage you said of people who just think about money all the time?
So it was 42% in a recent study done this year. They said that they have anxiety, depression, or can't sleep at night, and have some type of other mental problems because they're worried about money. So 42%.
Yeah.
But then of those people, 1 in 4 think about money more than they think about anything in their life. Now, we've all been told what young men think about all the time.
Right.
Even that, they think about money more than that, which seems kind of crazy.
Well, we've just had money on the brain for the last several years. I mean, you had the COVID lockdowns, so people are not working. So there's a lack of money, and then the government sends out those stimulus checks.
Right.
And so how many rounds of stimulus checks were there? 3, 4?
I don't remember.
So
they're printing money.
They're
they're just printing it.
You're getting money, and then there's the inflation. So things are costing more, and your money's not going as far, and people are worried about it. And yeah, I mean, it's on everyone's mind.
Cost of living is up.
Yeah.
Like a ridiculous amount. We don't eat out like that often. We went to Whataburger. We got it yesterday. $50.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And this is why we don't hardly ever go to Whataburger.
It's expensive.
Nuts, man.
Yeah.
Didn't used to be that.
Gotta go to Mickey D's.
About 3 years ago, it wasn't that much.
Yeah.
And never go to Five Guys. I never go there.
Oh.
You'll pay.
I went to Five Guys with just me and Julia one time, and I was shocked by how much we had to pay.
Oh yeah.
No.
It probably cost you $40 for 2 people. Yeah, price of food, price of everything's up. So yeah, people been thinking about money. But it's not a new thing.
Right.
Because like COVID hit, everybody's thinking about money. This is like one of the main areas that people have a problem with. Right. It's just dominated the thoughts of people through all history. So, you have your pantheons of gods and all the various cultures. They all have a god of money. All of them. So,
Yeah, and this I appreciate you saying it, because I think that when we start thinking about obsession with money and money worship, we think, well, those are the rich people.
right.
Like Julia she mentioned in our community group, what you think of as Ebenezer Scrooge,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
You think of this miser,
Mm-hmm.
but this is not a rich person problem.
Right.
This is as much a problem for people who don't have money
Uh-huh.
as for people that do have money.
Right.
Um, I know that I can struggle with this. I mean, you have a family, and you see the rising prices, and you wonder, how are you going to get by, and you can become obsessed with money.
Yeah. I want to go to this thing and talk about these. So when I was looking, I wanted to know, like, I know how Jesus just like frames it in a spiritual problem, Matthew 6. But I want to know, okay, which we'll talk about. How do regular, like, secular people think about, because obviously people thinking about it can cause all kinds of problems in their life. So I found this article in Psychology Today written by a professor at Creighton University, PhD. Interesting, because there's all these different money disorders. Like, people, we think about, there's these common behavior disorders. I'd never heard of money disorders,
Yeah.
but there's several that are listed, different categories even. And the third category was called money worshiping. I just thought for me, it was so interesting that they framed it like that,
Right.
because that's what I had written down early in the week when I was looking at this text and how Jesus talks about it. I wrote down money worship.
Yeah.
And they frame it as money worshiping. So they have a one for escapism, people who are compulsive spenders. It just helps them to escape reality, not to deal with their life. It's like they're on vacation in their local town. They're just spending money. Then there's people that accumulate masses of wealth. They're like workaholics, but they do it because it gives them like a sense of purpose and status, stuff like that, Then this one was interesting. There's hoarders, and it's related to actual hoarding, but instead of hoarding stuff in their house, you ever like seen a hoarder's house?
Oh yeah.
They hoard money because they feel like they're insecure. Like they think, I don't have enough money to survive if something bad happens or to retire, and so they never spend any, and they just accumulate it. They just stockpile money worshiping.
Yeah.
I thought it was just interesting. So, I mean, as we've always said before, psychologists can make good observations,
Right.
but they can't get to the heart problem,
Right.
which is what Jesus does.
Right.
So Jesus frames it as idolatry. No one can serve two masters. He will either hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. That's in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. So the way he frames it is there are two gods. There's one true and living God, and he personifies money and wealth. The word is mammon. Mammon, some people have said it's a Syrian god of money. I couldn't find any evidence of it. If you've got it, I'd like to see it. Be interesting to read about it. But everything that I could see, it seems like after Jesus made this statement and personified money as a god, like as a heart idol, people started to write about it as a god. So, but that doesn't change the fact,
Right.
It doesn't matter. Maybe it was in the Syrian pantheon. Who knows? But that's how he frames it. The money, when it takes over a person, it's a heart issue. Like you're seeking to get out of something what only God can give you. And people do that not just with money, they can do it with many other things. But today in our text, we're dealing particularly with this idol.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, this is not a difficult concept to grasp. This passage has some difficult verses to it, but the overall ideas are really easy to,
I think so,
for us to grasp. And I think that probably for most of the people who are listening to us, they already kind of understand that it's sinful to be greedy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as we walk through it, I really want to focus on the solution.
Okay.
You know, I think as we walk through it, the problem is very clear, and easy for us to really grasp. But we want to really focus on the how do we get rid of this? How do we avoid this? How can we live a godly life? So, this passage, it's a longer passage, but it also has an interesting structure to it. So before you read it, I want to talk about the structure. So as you're reading it, we can see it.
Okay.
So this is a chiasm.
Mm-hmm.
So explain a little bit about the chiastic structure, and then we'll read the passage.
Okay. Yeah. So there's more than one way to teach. So you can teach through the content of the words that are written.
Uh-huh.
You can also teach by the structure of how it's laid out.
Yeah.
I think, as God inspired this through Solomon, that this entire book it's brilliant. I mean, it's just sheer brilliance, because it's not even just the structure of this text, which is a chiasm, but it's the general negative tone of like despair. It just oozes despair until you get to like these gems that just jump out of nowhere, and they're focused on God. And that's part of the teaching style as well.
Are you saying that this was maybe written by the wisest man who
could have been written by the wisest man that ever lived? Yeah. Amazing, huh?
Yep.
So yeah, chiasm is just a literary technique of structuring parallel themes in a way that reveals the central point of the argument, or what the author's really wanting you to get.
Right.
So
a chiasm, it comes from the Greek letter chi, which is an X.
Yeah.
And so it's these parallel ideas, and right in the center is the main idea.
Right. So yeah, I handed this out at church. Do you want to show it? So you can see, if you're not watching, I'll try to describe it. So the themes are, if you have your Bible open, people who can't be satisfied, that'd be A, that's 5:8 through 12, and 6, 7 through 9. So kind of the first passages and the last passages of the section. And then there's B, people who suffer because of greed. That's 5:13 through 17, and 6, 1 through 6. Those two go together. In between all of them is to behold what is good, and that's God gives. God is the giver of many things. That's 5:18 through 20. And so then what you kind of do is you take the ones that are coupled together, and they become the sermon point. So sermon point number 1, money, worship can't buy you satisfaction. Second point, money worship is self-imposed destruction and brings God's judgment. And then the main idea, the main point that you really should take away is that God gives what money can't buy.
All right. Very nice.
It is.
Well, let's have you read it, and then we'll just walk through your outline.
Okay. All right. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, beginning verse 8. If you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be amazed at the matter. For the high official is watched by a higher, and there are yet higher ones over them. But this is gain for land in every way, a king committed to cultivated fields. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This is also vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them, and whatever advantage has their owner but to see them with their eyes. Sweet is the sleep of a laborer, whether he eats little or much, but the full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. There is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun. Riches were kept by their owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is a father of a son, but he has nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again, naked as he came, and shall take nothing for his toil, that he may carry away in his hand. This also is a grievous evil. Just as he came, so shall he go, and what gain is there to him who toils for the wind? Moreover, all his days he eats in darkness and in much vexation and sickness and anger. Behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of his life that God has given him, for this is his lot. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil, this is the gift of God. For he will not much remember the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind, a man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires, yet God does not give him power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity. It is a grievous evil. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he also has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. For it comes in vanity and goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. Moreover, it has not seen the sun or known anything, yet it finds rest rather than he. Even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good, do not all go to the one place? All the toil of a man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. For what advantage has the wise man over the fool? And what does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of appetite. This also is vanity and striving after the wind. Long passage.
Very long.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Well, let's walk through your outline. And
okay.
So we've got these parallel points, and the first point is money worship can't buy you satisfaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
it's just like Mick Jagger said.
Yeah, can't get no
satisfaction.
Get no satisfaction. I could only quote one song per sermon though, and I already quoted one.
Is that your rule?
Yeah.
Okay.
I quoted a country song.
Yeah. Well,
everybody's probably more familiar with that song though, from Mick Jagger. So Ecclesiastes 5:10
You said country
11.
music, and I just
tuned out.
I was kind of glazed over.
Well, I should clarify modern country music, which is debatable if it even is country music, right?
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes 5:10 through 11 and 6:7 contain in that these coupled verses.
Mm-hmm.
It's about those who cannot be satisfied. So money worship can't buy you satisfaction.
Let's talk about this this illustration that he opens with in verses 8 and 9, because it's a little bit of a difficult picture to really grasp. So what's going on here in these verses in 8 and 9?
So it's about greed on like societal level. He's going to talk about greed's effect on individuals. That'll dominate most of the verses, but he begins it by how greed dominates or its effect on society as a whole. So economics and the kind of illustration he gives here is that you shouldn't be surprised when you see oppression of the poor and a violation of justice and righteousness. Don't be amazed. Mm-hmm. Like, you shouldn't be surprised. The only people that are surprised are people like the lady who wrote in who thinks everyone's born good. Everyone's good. They just need to know that they're loved.
Rainbow emoji.
Yeah. You'll be surprised every time. But if you have a biblical understanding, and this is kind of what this text does, it's reminding us of the problem with society and economics is it's all driven by greed. So don't be amazed at the matter, because there's a high official. He's watched by a higher. So there's people at the bottom. They're experiencing oppression and injustice. There's a high official, but there's someone watching him above him, a higher one. And above that person, there's an even higher one watching him. And above all of them is a king. So verse 9 is a strange construction, I guess, in Hebrew. Every commentary I read on it said the same thing, strange construction, but it's rather than switching to a positive, like, hey, but it's good for the land in every way. If the king is about cultivated fields, it's best to understand it in light of the verse that precedes it and then what comes after it about the dangers of greed.
Mm-hmm.
And so it means something like, even in a kingship, like in Israel, the king's main goal is to make sure the economy runs, right? So the fields have to be cultivated. They have to be profiting. Now, if that's occurring, he's probably not going to go to the end of the line and say, are you guys taking care of your workers down here?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of how it goes up the layers. Like, this guy is worried about the guy above him. What does he need to make him happy? He needs to produce results. Mm-hmm. The guy above him wants results too, and above him there's a king who wants results for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And so built into it is greed.
Yeah.
And what's making everything continue on.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is what was warned.
You could see this if you've ever worked anywhere.
Right.
I've worked retail, and you could see it.
Mm-hmm.
You're at the bottom, stocking shelves, and you've got a person above you. And they've got a person above them, and that person's got a person above them, and it just keeps going up.
Right.
And as long as the store is making money, that's really the biggest issue. It's not are you happy?
Yeah.
Is the store making money?
Yeah. I mean, this is in everything. I mean, this is even in, like, we've got Chick-fil-A, which is part of Christianity now, and it's not. I mean, we've got insider look at it, and all the details of.
There's the three spheres that we see in Scripture. There's the church that's been instituted by God. There's the governing authorities, and then there's Chick-fil-A.
Right. So Angie used to work there, and she's worked there for a while, and I've told you all the ins and outs. I won't tell you everything, but I used to say to her, I'd be like, all right, so it seems to me like even legally there's been some injustice that has occurred here. Why don't you elevate that? And she'd say, can't do that. And I'm not talking about like stuff she saw with other people, personal stuff for her. Why not? Well, one day I might want to own a Chick-fil-A, and I don't want to be seen as someone who is like throwing a wrench in the system. And she said, because as long as the store makes money, is making money,
right,
they don't really care.
Right.
That's holy Chick-fil-A.
Uh-huh.
The only time they'll come, like corporate, or they'll even start to look, is if the store's not making money. So if it's making money, then it's not an issue, really a big issue.
You just jading everybody to Chick-fil-A, Jay? Is that what you're doing?
I'm just trying to help people to be realistic. I woan, it's a good illustration because we would think, oh, well,
I'm sure what you're saying here is going to help Angie. Someone at Chick-fil-A gets a hold of this.
Who knows? But it's a good illustration, I think, because we think, well, everything at Chick-fil-A would always be perfect. And we would think, well, Solomon's a king. Shouldn't everything be perfect in his kingdom?
Right.
But he's not, he's not dumb.
Yeah.
He's not. But how much can he actually change without breaking the whole thing? Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you should never be surprised.
Right.
And people throughout all history think, well, we can change this.
Right.
Like, we'll be the one culture that's ever existed in the history of humanity that actually changed this issue, this problem.
Right.
He says, don't be surprised. Like, it can't be changed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is how we ended up with Karl Marx and his what led to the worst governmental and economic strategy ever known to man.
Yeah.
His initial goal was to end like oppression, because he sees that greed is driving the West. Mm-hmm. And he makes some valid observations, like I said. I mean,
Right.
The illustration I brought out was Amazon today. Their CEO makes 6,474 to 1 is his pay to the average Amazon worker, which means in 20 minutes on day one, he makes more money than the average worker makes the entire year in 20 minutes. So there's this huge gap, and the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Yeah. It's always happened. Marx tries to do something about it, but the system he creates is like a monster that he unleashes on the world, and it doesn't bring in this utopia. It actually creates, in the past 100 years, more death and human suffering than anything.
Right. Well, you hear things about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and these guys that make just obscene amounts of money, and people rail against them. And I'm sure there are some people that really are concerned with injustice, but I think a lot of the time the reason why people complain about how much some of these guys make is because they're greedy. Mm-hmm. They wish they were making that money.
Right.
And I think if we examine our hearts, a lot of times we're not so concerned about the injustice that we see in the world. We see we have greed in our own hearts, and we want to be the ones making the money. And if we made Jeff Bezos money, we probably wouldn't be as concerned about the just the typical Amazon worker either.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Let's be serious here. But we hear a lot about the benefits of socialism. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in the government are pushing us. We're already in a socialist government.
To some degree, yeah.
Yeah, in some degree. I mean, as soon as they started, printing money and sending out stimulus checks, mm-hmm. That's not capitalism.
Well, when they bailed out under Bush, the automotive industry,
yep.
That's
not capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's being pushed more and more as if this is the way.
Right.
Right. This is going to solve all of our problems, and everyone's going to be taken care of, and it sounds good, but the problem is us.
The problem is the people.
The problem is the people. You've got communism has failed in all of these countries.
Right.
Why? Because of the people, right? Yeah. And it's the people at the top who are oppressing the people at the bottom, because don't for a second think that the people at the top are living on the same means as everyone else. They're still amassing.
They're greedy.
Hungry
for power.
Right.
Yeah. They'll roll over, literally, just roll over anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Kill anybody that gets in their way.
Right.
That's what history shows us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice to think that we could fix it, but Solomon's point is that this is part of the fallen world.
Right. Yeah, it's part of the fallen world. The only thing that will ever be like a good economic system mm-hmm. is Jesus reigning as king in a new heaven and a new earth.
Right.
So you've got a
glorified people.
You have a dictatorship, but the dictator is perfectly holy and good, and his people are made holy and good, mm-hmm. and so therefore now you could have what everyone's dreaming of,
right?
But you can't have it here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen,
right? Yep. So there is. He who loves money, verse 10, will mm-hmm. not be satisfied with money.
Yeah, so now shifts to the individual, and also same theme in 6, 7 through 9.
I think we hear that and we maybe give lip service to believing it, but mm-hmm. in the real world, we want to try it.
We want to try it.
Right?
Yeah.
Money won't satisfy you.
Right.
But I still want to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think what can happen. I think what if you just observe people that have become really rich, or you observe movie stars that maybe were nothing like a waiter and then they hit it big or something, and became incredibly famous and rich, is that money can make you temporarily happy.
Right.
And it could last for a few years. It could give you man, it's very exciting. You can do things you've never done before.
Mm-hmm.
You could travel, go to the places in the world you always wanted to see. But what always happens? Eventually that newness kind of wears off and they're just as unhappy as they were before, but now they just have a lot of money.
Right.
And
You talked about this. Trying to remember what sermon it was, but you were talking about people that won the lottery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was from way back in the Solomon's Journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the points was on that, on the wealth.
And what you told me, I don't remember if you brought it out in the sermon. You told me that they have a high rate of suicide, right?
Yeah, they do. High rate of suicide, because they get and it kind of comes to the second point here.
Mm.
What happens to you when you finally get the thing that you thought would complete you?
Right.
And then you realize it didn't.
Mm.
Well, then you don't have anything. What do you go for now?
Right.
You achieved it. You got the thing that you thought was missing in your heart, and then you're still as empty as you were before.
Mm-hmm.
Now you just become totally hopeless, completely hopeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the parallel to verses 8 through 12 is chapter 6, verses 7 through 9. And there's even as you were reading it, that's a little bit of a difficult section.
Mm-hmm.
Like what he's saying is a little difficult to understand.
Right.
Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so 7, repeating the same thing. All toil of a man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. So
that
he's
is
consuming.
that,
he's a consumer,
right.
But he can never consume enough to satisfy
right.
his heart. Then verse 8 kind of compares, because wisdom is something that always comes out.
Mm-hmm.
That wisdom could be an advantage
or
not an advantage. And so he says here, okay, well, what if I'm a wise person and I love money? Do I have an advantage over a fool who loves money?
Mm.
And his answer is no.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're wise or you're a fool. If this is the thing that's gripped you, then your wisdom's no advantage.
Mm.
It wouldn't matter if you were a fool.
Yeah.
Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. So the sight of the eyes would be somebody who is just living in the present moment. Mm. But this other person has an appetite that's wandering in it. It gets insatiable.
Okay.
It's money. It's searching to fill up his appetite. You can't do it. But there's the other person who kind of just lives day to day. That's the best I can do with it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this money, when we worship it and become obsessed with it, we find that it can never satisfy us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Well, let's look at the next point, which is money worship is self-imposed destruction and brings God's judgment. And this is chapter 5, verses 13 through 17. And chapter 6, verses 1 through 6.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So money worship. So you ended the first point with saying that not only does money not satisfy, but it actually can be detrimental to our souls.
Right.
Right. So
yes.
it's not just that it's futility, but it actually is a serious danger,
right?
A mortal danger.
Yeah. And Jesus gives the parable of the barns. What's the official name?
The parable of the foolish farmer or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have this man who is his land produces plentifully, and he doesn't even have a place to store his crops because he's made so much, and so of course he's going to be wealthy, agricultural society. So he's like, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll tear down all my barns. I'll build bigger ones, and I'll store up all my wealth. And then he thinks he'll be
fool.
The rich fool.
The
yeah.
rich fool. Yep.
And he'll say, "I say to myself, soul, you have you have laid up for yourself everything
Right.
for many years,
Talking to himself.
Eat, drink, and be merry." And Jesus says, God said to him, "You fool, this night your soul will be required of you."
Mm-hmm.
And so his wealth.
Right.
All he's cared about is his wealth. He hasn't cared about God or laying up treasures in heaven.
Yeah.
To be rich toward God. And so his soul's in danger. He's endangered his own soul. And so money worship doesn't just like think about it as if you are adrift at sea. If you start drinking seawater, not only will it not satisfy your thirst, it'll actually speed up the process of your destruction. That's what is going on here, and that's the second point. It doesn't just not satisfy you; it is actually self-imposed destruction, and then brings on God's judgment.
Okay.
So yeah.
So let's talk about those two things, and it seems like they're divided in the chiasm.
Right.
Is that right? Okay, so it's self-imposed destruction would be seen in 13 through 17.
Right.
So we've got another illustration.
Right.
Right. He loves giving these little stories, right?
What links the two as the same theme is Solomon observing a grievous evil.
Okay.
That's the term he uses. He said, "There is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun." Same thing. He says, he uses the same terminology in the text that is coupled with it in 6:1-6. So a grievous evil is, we've talked about it before when we talk about the problem of evil. Evil, when we hear that as Westerners, we're thinking like exorcist stuff, or we're thinking murder. That person did a moral wrong, a moral evil. But in Hebrew, the word has a different range, has a wide range, and many times it means like something like a calamity.
Right.
So one person translated it as tragedy, and I think that works really well with the way we think about things right now where we are in society. So Solomon observes instead of a grievous evil, Solomon observes a sickening tragedy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like something just terrible happens and it just makes you sick to your stomach because it's just a catastrophic event. So greed, money worship is self-imposed sickening tragedy. And this is the first kind of man. He says he observes a man who accumulates great wealth to his own hurt. So he's harming himself with it. He gets his idol. He gets all the wealth, but then something happens. He has a bad business venture, and he loses everything he has. He doesn't have anything to leave to his son. He has a son who, and to not be able to leave him an inheritance is seen as, really bad.
Right.
But he lost all his wealth, but the thing he didn't lose was his love of it. So he's lost his heart's greatest desire, like the greatest love that he has, which he had for a moment, is gone, and it just destroys him.
Yeah, which is what we see in verse 17, right?
Right. All his days he eats in darkness and in much vexation and sickness and in anger. He's like. Should I do another Tolkien reference? He's like Gollum when he loses the ring.
Okay.
It's
all right.
Torment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And that's what you see. I mean, it's a vivid picture. A man eating. It's not like he's eating in a dark. Like if the sun goes down, that's when he eats. It's that he's in darkness.
Right.
His entire world is collapsed.
Yeah.
His soul is eaten away at itself.
One of our church members, he was like, "You got to talk about cryptocurrency." So I'll oblige, and we can talk about cryptocurrency just for a second, because
did somebody lose a bunch of cryptocurrency?
Well, you remember when Elon Musk he tweets something and the whole world is shaken by it. He tweeted something about Dogecoin. a couple of years ago. You remember that?
Yeah.
And it just soared.
Yeah.
Well, it came back down.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's pretty volatile.
Yeah.
And people make a lot of money, but they also can lose a lot of money really quickly. We see this with as soon as the war in Ukraine started, all the cryptocurrency just tanked. And it's still down. Even that everything seems to respond to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is down. So you can imagine how much money people lost with this. But I've invested a little bit in cryptocurrency, and I've lost some money in cryptocurrency.
Have you really?
But you look at
how much would you have gained if you'd have sold it when it was high? Do you want to tell us?
Not very much. I don't have a whole lot. I haven't invested a whole lot in it. Not
enough to make you sick. No.
No. Only invest as much as you're willing to lose, right? But so I use an app, an investment app, and they've got a comment section, and so constantly looking at the comment sections on these cryptocurrencies, and people are just always, it's just about to take off. We're going to the moon. We're going to the I mean, every day it's the same. Any day now it's going to take off. We're all going to be in those Lambos, you know. But you can lose it all.
Yeah,
you can lose it all, and if you have a love of money, you're going to be this person that is in vexation and darkness and anger, because the one thing that you want, it's out of your range.
Gone, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Jesus talks about money a lot, and he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It's always this is a hard deal. So, and then he talks about your eye being the lamp of the body, and he's still talking about greed. So if you are greedy and that's what you live for, it makes your whole body like dark. He compares it to, if then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And it does what it does to this man.
Yeah.
It totally consumes you.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason why Ebenezer Scrooge is so famous.
Right.
Because everybody has known someone like him.
Yeah.
Nobody likes him. He doesn't like anybody. He's prickly.
He's lost the love of his life.
Yep.
And he's in danger of losing his soul if he doesn't change.
Yeah.
Well, you gave another Tolkien reference, which I like this one. That? Dragon sickness.
Dragon sickness. Yeah.
You read The Hobbit, and you see Smaug under the lonely mountain, and he is just sitting on a big pile of gold.
Yep.
And this is kind of a common myth about dragons, is that they love treasure. Obviously not to spend it. They just like sitting on it,
just to have it.
And if you read the book or you watch the movie, you'll see how obsessed he is, that he knows where every single piece of treasure is.
Right.
And when
he won't part with a single coin.
Yeah. Right. And when Bilbo sneaks in and tries to take something, he almost dies. But it's not something that's just for the dragons. It's something that affects other people. So when the dwarfs come out of the mountain, Thorin, the leader, the king under the mountain, he gets infected with dragon sickness also, and he's willing to go to war.
Yeah,
over treasure.
And he says like the same phrase as Smaug does about the treasure. That's how he's got that dragon sickness. Yeah. But it's an old, like you said, an old tale. Where did I have it in my notes? So I read that Tolkien got that idea from this Nordic tale called the Volsunga Saga.
Yeah,
have you heard about it?
I can believe that.
Yeah. So old Nordic tale about how Odin tricks a mighty warrior. I don't know how to say his name. It's like Freythmar.
These are your people, man. If you can't pronounce it, I'm not going to be able to pronounce it.
Hreithmar. And so this mighty man, so he's an awesome Viking, obviously. That's why Odin's blessed him with a massive treasure. But Odin curses the treasure because Odin's a trickster. It's not just Loki. It's Odin, right? He's cruel. He's like a cruel god. Mm. And so he has 3 sons, but one of them, Fafnir, because that gold is cursed, he's infected by that curse, and he kills his brother, kills his father, because he wants all of it. One of his brothers escapes. And so he goes into this, to where the gold is and sits on it and locks himself in there with it. But over time, he starts to like grow scales and a long neck, and he turns into a big dragon. Mm. And then his brother that escaped told someone about it. Sigmund, I think, is his name. So this guy's the hero. He comes back and kills the dragon, but it's Fafnir. So this treasure destroys this entire family. And that's apparently what I had read was that influenced, Tolkien knew about that. It kind of influenced his idea of dragon sickness. Yeah. But you can kind of see that in Smaug.
Uh-huh. Right.
But
we see dragon sickness all over our world, though, right? All over our culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so this is the point.
People who are willing to destroy their lives.
Their family.
Because I couldn't help, as you were talking about it, to think about Tom Brady and what's going on with him right now. He retired.
Yeah.
And then he came out of retirement, and there was some rumors that this is not what his wife wanted, and now he's playing for the Buccaneers, but his whole family is falling apart.
Yeah.
His marriage is falling apart, and it seems that he's more in love with
the sport,
with the sport than he is with what really matters.
Yeah.
And you see this with, you see this with celebrities all the time. Like they will do literally what Jesus says, that they'll forfeit their soul to gain the whole world.
Right.
It's because they have dragon sickness.
Yeah, and it's self-destructive.
Right.
When you love an idol and you pursue it, it's not a neutral thing because you weren't designed for these things.
Right.
So it destroys you.
Yeah. So it's not just self-destructive, but you pointed out that this also brings the judgment of God, and that's what we see in chapter 6.
6, 1 through 6.
Verses 1 through 6.
Yeah, another sickening tragedy that he observes. He observes that God gives a man wealth, all the wealth he ever wanted, but then God doesn't give him something. He withholds from him the ability to enjoy it, and then another will enjoy it. And he says this is a sickening tragedy. This is the way God often judges people, though, when they run after idols. He'll just let them. He'll let them. Eventually, God will say, "Okay, you want it? Have at it."
Yeah.
And the letting go of the person into it, is the judgment of God, because God knows what will happen. They'll destroy themselves in it.
Right.
So God gives someone a massive amount of wealth, but he withholds from him the ability to actually enjoy it.
Right.
And is very graphic, even if he had hundreds of children, which is seen as a great blessing, or if he could live many years. And then in verse 6 says, even if he could live 2,000 years.
Right. Which I was thinking, the oldest man in the Bible lived to be almost 1,000 years old. That's the oldest person. So 2,000 years, that would be twice as long as the oldest person who's ever lived.
Right. Yeah. And what could you do with 2,000 years of a life? You could get insanely wealthy.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe even own the entire world for real. Like Jesus warns, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world? Well, maybe you could gain the whole world. But if God withholds from you the ability to enjoy it, you'll be the most miserable man in the world.
Right.
You'll be completely miserable.
Right. And he gives that graphic comparison at the end of verse 3.
Right. Yeah. And it can be hard to read. I wanted to try to state that ahead of time for people to read about people that have had a miscarriage or stillborn child. For these words, it's not Solomon being insensitive, and it's not even Solomon anyway. It's God inspired this. God's not insensitive. I think he's trying to really make the point as clearly and as strongly as possible how bad it is to fall into the love of money and money worship, that it would be better, it's better for a stillborn child who's never been born than you, even if you live 2,000 years, because the stillborn child never experiences life under the sun, and when he dies, he has rest. But that's the very thing that the person who loves money will never get.
Yeah.
They'll never get it as long as they live. And that's a judgment of God. He's judged you by never giving you rest and never giving you the enjoyment of your wealth.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's look at the main idea in this passage, which is found in verses in chapter 5, verses 18 through 20. This is the center of the chiasm. So how this is the danger. It money worship. It won't satisfy us. It actually brings destruction and God's judgment. So what's the answer? What's the solution? How do we? This is something that all of us are going to face.
Yeah.
We're all going to be in some way or the other. We're going to be dealing with money. So how do we avoid money worship?
So 18 through 20, the kind of central person is really not you or anyone else. It's God. So God is the central figure here. God is the giver, and he gives a lot of different things here. One of the things he gives is God gives enjoyment. So the idea is that God gives what you can't buy with money. He's already told you in these very graphic ways, you can't buy enjoyment. You're not going to find satisfaction. Only God can give you what you're looking for in money. And it's found in the pursuit of God. God is the giver. So God gives enjoyment. God gives all the days of your life in this passage. And so for us, instead of, spending the few days that we have that God has given us running around in chasing, vanity and emptiness, like chasing the wind, thinking we're going to catch it, we should instead understand what we're looking for. God's ready to just give it to you. You just have to change your perspective on the world and realize in the fallen world, nothing can satisfy you, but God can. So you wake up under the sun and you go, I'm ready to receive from God that which only he can give, enjoyment. That's really a very simple life lesson. Pursue God and find enjoyment.
Yeah.
And he lists like very common things. Work, that's your lot in life. God has given you a lot in life, so understanding the sovereignty of God, that you are, whether you're rich or poor, you're where you are because God has assigned you this lot in life. And then we're to enjoy. God has given you a life that you can enjoy: food, drink, and work. The basic things of life. And God makes them enjoyable. If we aren't pursuing these things for ultimate ends, but instead where we learn to be content in God, then the most common everyday things can give us great satisfaction and joy.
I think that it's important for us to understand this because I think that at least I was raised kind of not with an intentional Gnostic theology, but we often have kind of that Gnosticism about the world, that the spirit is good, but matter is evil.
Right.
Or kind of the monastic idea. Like we've been infiltrated with monastic thought that we Christians, we need to remember that this world is not our home, and so divest yourself of these physical enjoyments and just focus on spiritual. And I think this brings a little bit of balance to that God made the world and he made it good, and so it's okay for us to enjoy food,
right,
and to enjoy life. Right? Jesus came to give us joy, not to make us mopey all the time.
Right. Yeah. Just think about just like food and drink, just the simple things that we do them every day. We have to eat to live.
Right.
I think for me, difficult to learn a lesson. Maybe anyone who served in the military, because you just eat because you have to eat food, and you eat real fast. So I mean, slow down, put something in your mouth, and just think about how good it tastes, and think about that God made you like that on purpose. I mean, some things are so good, people like will make a noise after they put it in their mouth, like you know, like, oh. If you ever had a little secret vanilla bean ice cream from Sam's,
Okay.
the best in the world.
Really?
Oh yeah, if you can find it, they're always out, but it's unreal. Unreal, George.
Vanilla bean ice cream
It'll
from
make
Sam's is the best. Is the best in the world.
You put it in your mouth, and
All right,
you will become a worshiper of God. That'd be like, are you an atheist? Wait a second. Open your mouth.
How much are you getting paid for this?
Shut your eyes. Shut your eyes, atheist. I'm putting this in your mouth. And then all of a sudden he's, left atheism, become a worshiper of God immediately.
Jay's apologetic.
Yeah.
And evangelistic methods are they're bizarre.
Right. So, I mean, if think about it, though, I mean, if we just evolved from nothing, all we would really need to know is if we put something in our mouth that it was going to kill us or not. Like it was poisonous. Like, okay, I put it in my mouth. Like, no, that's poison. Anything else, like, it's going to sustain my life. Yeah. That's really all that's necessary. Like it's like so overdone, the ability to taste things. I mean, God gave that to us for what other reason than he would want us to enjoy life.
Yeah.
We don't ever think about those things, though. Right. We take them for granted. But that Solomon's kind of trying to get at that. Like, God's given you so much just in your life that to enjoy. They can be enjoyed if you view God as the giver of good things, and you stop trying to search it out and in the things themselves.
Right.
So.
Right. I think it also is, if you have a high view of God's sovereignty, you can enjoy life this way. That's what he says at the end of verse 18. This is his lot.
Right.
This is what God has given to each of us.
Yeah.
So if we're trusting in the sovereignty of God, we're trusting that he gives us exactly what we need. If we don't have something, it's not necessary for us to live in a life, satisfied, full life, because God gives us what we need, right? So I think that if we remember his sovereignty, if we remember his goodness, that he's the giver of all good things, all those things go into helping us to avoid this money worship.
Right. Yep. That's right. Exactly. And this enjoying being fulfilled in God himself, enjoying him as the giver of like real contentment, real life, is most explicitly seen in Jesus and the way Jesus talks about himself. He often frames sinners as people that are thirsty, and instead of going after seawater, Jesus says, "There's some real fresh water. This water that I give to you will become like a well, springing up in you in eternal life." Also speaking of the Holy Spirit, as the gift giver of the Holy Spirit, as he and the Father sends the Spirit. I mean, he says it on the Temple Mount. He has a teaching on it. If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. And then the woman at the well, who's obviously doing this thing that people do with money, she's doing it with men. Right. She's had all of these husbands, and now the person she has is not her husband. That woman has an idol. She's seeking ultimate fulfillment in what a man can give her. And Jesus says he has something so much better. Yeah. That if she really knew who he was, she would ask him for a drink. And he said, and I would give you this living water, and you'll never be thirsty again. So Jesus can satisfy the deepest longings of the human heart and give us real satisfaction, real contentment in life. Not just for eternal life, like now, right. Satisfaction contentment now.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why Paul can say, I've learned how to be content in every situation because I can do all things through him who strengthens me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he was dropping threes before Curry as well. Right? That's what he meant?
No one's even going to know what you're talking about.
Sorry. Yeah. Stephen Curry, he has that verse on his shoes in the NBA. That's like his life motto.
Uh-huh.
Draining threes. Yeah. Now you're right. Yeah, Paul. Content in all circumstances. And Roman, just look up a Roman prison. Not a pretty place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, very good.
Well, guess next week we'll be back in Hebrews.
Yep, back in Hebrews for 4 weeks.
Okay.
So I'll be interviewing you next time.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, a good conversation, good thoughts. I'm enjoying going through Ecclesiastes. I hope everyone else is enjoying it and benefiting from it. Also, if you are, please make sure to like, subscribe, share, get the word out. Hopefully, we can be an encouragement to others, and we can help you to understand the scriptures better, because it's in the scriptures that God conforms us more into the image of Christ. And so, hey, if you ever have any questions, we love to field questions and comments. Make sure to put in a rainbow emoji if you're going to do that, though. But if you write something crazy, we will talk about it. Well, until next time, we'll see you on Free for All Friday. Have a good week, and we'll see you later. Bye.
You timed it perfect.